So this is the final game I played in my club's weekly Wednesday night tournament. It was 7 rounds. This was round 6. I wasn't feeling well for round 7, so unfortunately I didn't get to play. So in 7 rounds total, I I ended up only playing in 4 of the rounds. But the 4 games I played, I was really just I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed playing the chess that I played. And this game, you can see my opponent was rated 1753. And I didn't realize this at the time, but my local club likes to name tournaments after important club members. And he has an annual tournament named after him at my local club. So he's a big deal. So my opponent, 1753, we're at board 2 in the reserve championship. We both had been performing pretty well in the tournament. Leading up to this, I had 3 points and he had 3.5 points going into round 6. So he was very much vying for first place in the tournament, whereas this whole tournament, I've just been working on getting my nerves under control. I was just happy to be there and play the best chess I could. And so we were chatting a little before the round, and we were talking d4, e4, and I told him that every game I've played in this tournament had been a d4 open. And I think a little bit because I said that, he played d4. I don't know what it is with club players and playing d4. That was my thing. I wanted to be the d4 player. Give me a Caro-Kann any day, but I don't know. I still need to study my responses to d4 a little bit. Um, what a fun scumbag. Yeah, he was super nice. I enjoyed chatting with him a lot. Um, and so I replied d5, just kind of going on the vibes I know from playing online. He plays Queen's Gambit, and so I go for a Queen's Gambit declined. Now, immediately when he takes on d5, I go, uh-oh, because I have not done any studying of any theory from this position. So, the most powerful man in the club by the sounds of it. And Gotham's Courses made a ton of people play the London. Yeah, I would have loved a London here, because I know what to do against the London because I see it so often, but instead we get this crazy Queen's Gambit declined thing. Is this going into a London? Well, I take back. So, reluctantly don't have a pawn on the e-file, but that's okay. He brings out a knight. I bring out a knight. Usually when an opponent brings out the knight, it's a decent stab to play the other knight out, so you're controlling the same 2 central squares. And then he brings the bishop out to pin my knight. I unpin my knight by developing a bishop and preparing for a quick castle. And the reason I played this is because if I had made another move, for example, like if I had kicked here, then I'm in a little bit of trouble, because if takes, this is actually the top move, because otherwise the knight could grab this if instead we had gone something like this, then oops. So that's why I played bishop e7. He was pushing the London like no other. Well, keep that in mind, because very shortly we're going to get to a very interesting section of this opening. Because he finishes his pawn chain, because the bishop is outside the pawns, so he can close those up. And here I make an inaccuracy. Remember, I'm completely out of theory at this point. I'm just going on opening vibes. And in some positions, it is an idea to challenge the light squared bishop so the bishop can't get to its favorite square where it has a lot of scope. It does not work in this position, but it is what I played. This is what I played in the game, bishop f5, and it's a problem. The reason it's a problem in this position is because the b7 pawn has no defense, and it comes with some checks, and there's just, this does not work in this. And T-check says, and Prof says queen b3. Well, guess what my opponent played in the game? queen b3. Now, interestingly, this was a mistake. I spent a lot of time thinking here. And after the game, my opponent and I did talk about the game, and I'll show you why this is a mistake. I played this next sequence correctly, thankfully. But if he had instead taken here first, and I take back, then and only then is queen b3 a good move. Whereas the way he actually played it, with this knight still existing on the table, is I can actually bring my knight out so that there's a replacement of the f6 knight, and I am not at all concerned about the b7 pawn. So this is what we ended up playing in the game. To play knight from b to d7, I spent about 10 minutes of time because I knew I had messed up the opening. I realized very quickly that this bishop was a problem because it left huge vulnerabilities on my queen side. But luckily, my opponent played queen b3 incorrectly. So he tries to go for the same idea, but it doesn't work in this order because the knight replaces the bishop. And my development is going to be great, exactly. And now, opponent has given up his dark squared bishop. I have the bishop pair. I'm way ahead on development because white has not moved 2 pieces. Doesn't seem like a great idea to castle queenside, so black's king a little vulnerable in the center here. Whereas me, boop, I'll be fine. So at this point, white does take the pawn, and you'll notice the evaluation bar, even though white just gained a pawn, the advantage is for black. And the reason the advantage is for black is because of the mentioned reasons. The fact that I have the bishops, I have development, and the only active piece can get kicked around like nobody's business and give me tons of really, really deadly threats on this very open queen side. So that's what I had calculated when I played knight from b to d7. I knew I was losing pawns. I knew it. I knew I would be down material, but had some pretty great compensation. So he takes, and I didn't want to get greedy here because if I did something like rook b8 now, the queen could give some checks. I wanted to rapidly finish developing and then go for my attacking ideas before white had a chance to finish their own development. So I played castle, and opponent plays knight f3. Seemingly a rational move to develop more material. But actually, the only way to kind of handle this threat is to get the queen out of the way. Engine's top move here was queen a6. So I bring my rook over, completely acknowledging that this drops another pawn. But I don't care about that pawn because once the queen leaves, I get to grab the b2 pawn and have complete control over the b file. Notice the rook can't even come over because my bishop, which had been dumb on that square earlier, is actually pretty good here now. So queen says, okay, I guess I'll grab another pawn. I take a pawn back. And then, what does opponent play here? What a well thought out bishop. Right, I was in it for the long game, even though I didn't mean to. Really what it is luckily my opponent misplayed the order of the opening, otherwise I would have been in trouble. So here opponent plays a3, which is the best move. Why did he play a3? I see why he played a3, to prevent pin problems. All right, so after my opponent plays a3, I play an inaccuracy. It's not a terrible move, but it's just not the best move. Proposing a queen trade going after this pawn would have been a better move. But I think during the game, I played my rook back, trying to cause tempo problems for my opponent. But the reason that this is not a great move for me is that it provokes the knight to move. And now white's knight is becoming a much better piece than it was before. So, yeah. And for the very same reasons, my next move is a mistake. This is a mistake because there's some crazy, crazy engine lines about why this is a mistake. Interestingly, the engine's top suggestion here isn't even to move the knight. The engine suggests things like counter threats with knight to d2. The engine also suggests things like what does the engine suggest? This move is crazy to me. Saying, I don't care if you take that knight. Don't care. Don't care at all. Because if you take that, then I have a fork and I am posing no more problems for white. So, yeah, there's some really, really crazy lines here. Engines following the top engine moves here. If the knight had gone to e5, which was the best move, taking, as we saw, was an inaccuracy. The top move, queen c8. Just insanity here. And like, if the queen takes, then what's the follow-up here? Then you grab the knight, and now it's like just open files galore, and black is in some trouble. Or white is in some trouble, I'm sorry. But as I played it, I played c6, trying to kick the knight out, and white has a huge blunder here. He told me after the game that he completely overlooked the tactic. He plays queen a4, trying to have a counter threat where if I take the knight, he takes the rook. And WV, hello, welcome. Queen c8 makes a ton of sense if you even consider it in the first place. Yeah, it does. But I did not consider it. I was trying to stick with my plan of tempo and keeping white's king in the center of the board. Which you can see the evaluation for me has never been in white's favor, so it's been somewhat effective. But this is a blunder. Engine keeps calling it mistake, but it's not, because I have bishop c2. And my opponent started thinking a really long time here. He knew he was cooked, because now the knight is hanging. There are huge tactical threats with a check on the king that would win the queen. It's just looking really, really, really dire. So he spent a lot of time. He eventually plays queen back to a6, conceding that he's going to be down a piece. And bishop c2 is a great find over the board. Thank you. Yeah, I was really, really happy I saw it. And I think it was one of the first times where I knew my opponent had made a mistake, because often when I play over the board, I trust that my opponents are playing the best moves, which is not true. My opponents make mistakes, and giving them too much credit is just not beneficial. So here I knew my opponent had made a mistake, and I had to capitalize on it. So yeah, I'm up material here. My game it's basically mine to win. So because I'm up material, I have more pieces on the board. At this point, I am looking to simplify and go into a winning endgame. So bishop takes. I propose a queen trade, and the king moves, trying to, I don't, like, putting pressure on the bishop, I guess. So I drop my bishop back. I don't need to hang material, you know? And he brings a rook over, activating his pieces. His king is in a really funky location, but what are you gonna do? And then I take. I'm like, let's just simplify things, get the ladies off the board, and he takes back. And at this point, because I am in that simplification mindset, notice that he does have more of my pawns than I have of his pawns. But to make his pawns less scary, I decide to damage the structure. Oh, nope, not yet. Hold on to that idea. And T checks, you think queen c7 might have been meaner. Let's evaluate. Queen c7, does that work? Engine's top suggestion here is queen b8, hitting the bishop again. And WV, that's a really good point. When you're up a piece and he's not castled, you don't want to trade. Wait, you don't want to trade if you were white here or if you're black here. Because on the one hand, I can see that for white, not castling, heading into an endgame king activation might be a little bit easier. For black, yeah, that's a really, really good point. And probably a lesson I will take from this game. But as we did trade queens. And evaluation, you can see, still is in my favor, so yeah, I'm doing okay. And so here I go after this pawn because, you know, we don't want white to have any passed pawns, and because I have this bishop, go for it, you know? So that's what I do. And white is continuing to fight, looking for some counterplay. And I take one tempo to just create a lift, because wouldn't it be devastating in this winning position if I ran into back rank problems? And T checks, in closer inspection, he's castling pretty fast anyway, so yeah, maybe just getting the queens off. And there's most likely the most accurate. Yeah. It's a style thing if you're winning either way. That's true. But I think that I hadn't even considered king activation, so that's something that I want to have at least considered, you know? I don't have to play everything perfectly, but I want to at least consider all the ideas, so I have a better representation of making a good or bad judgment call. So I play h6, and then he brings in a knight. I think he's really desperate for any kind of counterplay, because now if my rook moves somewhere, then the f7 pawn is under defended because he has two attackers there. And the continuity here is that because the knight removed itself from f3, I can get greedy and grab a pawn. And I thought a little bit, because on the one hand, it could be said that grabbing this pawn, leading to a tempo issue, maybe there would be threats here, but I gave it a really solid think and didn't see any actual reason why opening the file a bit in front of my king was bad for me, especially because we're heading towards the end game. I knew my king was going to start moving anyway. So he moves the king, and I do line up my rooks, saying, you know what, this pawn I'm not overly concerned with, because if you take the time to grab that, I have checks now, and I can win that pawn back. We'll be okay. And there aren't any threats that his pieces can coordinate to actually be dangerous to my king. Right? The only square the knight and the rook can coordinate on here is f7. Not a big deal. This move terrified me. My opponent plays rook c8 check, and phenomenal move. Absolutely phenomenal move. Because if I misplay this and take, king takes, and it's equal. The game is dead equal. So I did not anticipate this move, but thank goodness I have a bishop, because my bishop can come back to f8 to block the check. Prof, exactly. So that is what I played. Man, I feel like I got lucky here because it was not on my radar. Resting forwards, good to see you. Nice spot, thank you. And I was surprised that opponent trades here because he is down material, so I take back. And now we're heading into endgame territory where I have my bishop pair, a knight and a rook, versus just one knight, one bishop, and a rook. So he brings a bishop back, kind of lasering in, maybe causing some back rank issues if I'm not careful. I kick a knight out. He moves the knight. I pin the knight. It's not a powerful pin because he can very easily bring in defenders, maybe this way, but I just liked being annoying though. I'm going through this middle sequence pretty quickly because it is such a winning position for me, but my opponent was not going through this quickly. He was taking his sweet time. It was a 90+30 game, and he was a thinker. I'm usually a thinker, but he was a thinker. And because he was trying to find complications for my otherwise winning position. And so a couple moves from now, I'll do a quick time check-in, but just know that my opponent's time is a huge problem for him. So opponent does come in to add a defender to the knight. I bring my king over, just trying to get a little bit king activation in this endgame. He brings a bishop over to, attack my rook. I say, actually, you know what? I don't need your material on the board, please. So very thematic. I had a similar move in my last over the board game where I force a trade of the bishops with a check. So he's got to take, and I take back. And he kicks my knight out, which, top move. And I bring my knight back. And I'm not in any trouble here, but I do have to be careful because my bishop right now, as it stands, doesn't have any defenders. So if this knight can move and I have not accounted for my bishop, then I have piece problems. So that's also part of why I brought my king over, is that if the knight can move, maybe like my king can come up to do some kind of defense. But I did not love my piece coordination in this endgame, and my opponent was doing a really, really, really strong job. He starts marching his pawns, and to deal with that somewhat kind of hanging bishop, I bring it out of the way, hoping maybe, just start eating pawns from behind. Gonna take a sip of tea, I've been talking a lot. So he brings his king over so that I can't eat the e3 pawn. And I play g5, trying to just really get material off the board. But I just caused a new problem for myself. What problem did I cause for myself? The same reason I moved my bishop. Now my knight has no defense. So I was aware of that. Everyone should say hi to Babs. She's sauntering down the hallway. Hey, asthmatic kitty cat. Anyway, yeah, T-checks, you're surprised Stockfish liked G5. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't know why I played it. Actually, I do know why I played it. Ethan, being a real one, giving Babs a treat. She's so ready. That's from Ethan. Babs thanks you. Yeah, I wish I hadn't played G5. Engine's top suggestion was knight G8 for a reroute, potentially, guarding some squares. But here is the other part of my strategy. Remember, I'm somewhat new to over-the-board chess. This was game number 33 over the board for me, and I've improved a ton with my over-the-board vision. I finally stopped feeling nervous about over-the-board games with this tournament, but I am still new. And my opponent had a minute on his clock at this point. One singular minute. I had 30 minutes on my clock. And yes, there was increment of 30 seconds, but he was like on life support with that increment. Just, he would get down to 40 seconds, make his move, hit the clock. Get down to 30 seconds, make his move, hit the clock. So he was like 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, just for several moves here. And I decided, like the big brain I am, that I didn't want my opponent to get to use my clock time. So I was trying to move quickly too, thinking, hey, maybe he'll flag. Don't do that. Don't be me. Don't do what I did. Hindsight's 2020. I tell you, if you have 30 minutes on the clock, use your dang time. And WV, yeah, I saw a guy play 15 moves with 1 second and 5 seconds delay. My opponent very clearly had more over-the-board experience than me. He had an entire tournament named after him, for heaven's sake. So trying to beat him on the clock when he told me ahead of the game that he is always in time trouble, that should have been my clue. That should have been my clue, that he's going to be a guru living off that 1 minute. So I tried a new strategy. We're gonna see if it paid off for me. But, and T-checks, it's actually a deadly trap that time trouble aficionados lure people into. Getting super short and then winning in their own scramble. You don't say. Interesting. Okay, so where were we in the game before that brief interlude? King D3 was just played. I played G5 like a dummy, and opponent plays E4. So I take, saying, hey, any simplifying here is good for me. He takes back, and then I don't even want to show you the next move. I really don't. I don't want to show you. I don't want to show you. I Guild Chest, thank you for the follow. You're just in time to see me completely throw a game I was crushing my opponent in for 90% of the moves. From move like 5, I had an advantage. And T-checks not bishop d6. Bishop d6? What, are you crazy? No, not bishop d6. I play king g7. Now, on the surface, this may feel like, okay, just move a king to protect the knight. Right? Okay, Resting Forest says, seems okay. King g8 and got forked. No, it wasn't a fork situation. So I'm glad that at least one person in chat says that king g7 seems legit, right? Defending a knight who, if their knight moves, like, could be under attack. Now, here's why the problem was. Now, WV catches it. WV catches the fatal flaw with this move. An opponent with a minute on the clock spots it. Knight e7. Why is this a problem? It's a problem because immediately my rook is getting attacked. And after I move my rook away, knight f5 checks the king. And if I want to continue defending my knight after a pawn, I'm in trouble. Yeah. So, amazing find by my opponent. I play rook b8, thinking, okay, also if the knight goes to f5, it's forking my bishop and my king. Like, there's just a ton of problems for me now that my king is on g7. So of course my opponent immediately capitalizes on it. I play king g6, completely acknowledging that, you know, I'm gonna be in trouble. And I thought maybe my opponent will take here, at least then I could skewer. But opponent goes back. And, well, I have to keep defending my knight, so I go back. And then my opponent checks me again. And I defend my knight again. And my opponent goes back, and we have a draw by threefold repetition. Ah! That was my game. And as you could see, as we played these, all of these were great moves. They were only moves in the situation for both of us. Such a swindle. Afterwards, we went to the analysis room and talked through the game. And on the way there, he was like, I almost feel bad for that draw at the end. And I told him, look, you found it. All's fair. I mean, obviously, I was frustrated with myself, but had nothing but respect for how he played it. At least I got tricked by a clever sequence. Yes, I actually, talking through it now, I do feel better about it, because in the game, after he started doing this, I thought I was an idiot. I thought that king g7 was a really obvious blunder, but it's sneaky. Granted, with 30 minutes on my frickin' clock, I should have seen this. But that's honestly the big lesson I learned from this game, is clock strategies. Don't F with them. Just don't. There's no reason to. And WB, knight takes g3, rook b3, king moves. Yeah, it's still equal, no matter how you slice it. I think that here, if you take and then go here, yeah, it's still a draw. Still a draw, because I grab this, then rook takes, and because this is winning, yeah, like, these pawns become kind of scary. So, actually, how does it continue? Okay, so if he takes here, that'd be winning for me. But best move for him would be d5, so continuing to pass. And t-checks. You think the other lesson, that g5 pawn push, you're so right. You're so right. G5 was cocky of me. And shouldn't have played it. And resting bit for them to convert. Maybe could have pushed them on the clock. Well, that's what I was trying to do, but because he kept going back to f5 with the knight, I was forced to play king up to keep protecting my own knight. So he forced the repetition with this knight move and not taking here. And he told me after the game that he didn't want to take the bishop because he thought that it could pose complications that would only benefit me. And yeah, the ending would be lost if I gave up a piece, yeah. And Prof says, take away, lose pieces, drop off. Yeah, my endgame was filled with tentatively defended pieces. But this was my final game in the tournament. So quick little recap on how the tournament went for me. It was a 7-round tournament, but I only played 4 rounds. And I got 2 half-point buys and 1 0-point buy. My health has been a little touch and go for the past couple of months, so I missed several games. But of the 4 games I played, technically I didn't lose any. I had 3 draws and 1 win. So what is that? 2.5 out of 4 for the games I played. And I came in 9th out of 20 for the tournament bracket, where I was originally seeded as number 19. So I outperformed there. And my new ELO for USCF. Remember, I've had a really, really rocky start over the board, 1163, whereas online I'm nearly 2000. After this tournament, my ELO jumped up to 1366. So we're finally starting to normalize towards where I expect to hang out for more of the time. Congrats, thank you. Yeah, I was so happy with this tournament as a whole. Like, over the board chess finally felt fun to me. It didn't feel bad stressful, it just felt fun stressful. So I'm going to take a break from the upcoming Wednesday tournament just because I need a break. But I definitely want to go back, and actually the next tournament will be the one named after this opponent. So